Hello, my name is Larry Jackson. I am a therapist, online therapist um, by trade, and a life coach nationally. And I think I'm just going to start making posts about the things that I'm passionate about. Particularly, I don't like to get too scientific or too enmeshed in the mechanics behind therapy, but I do want to talk and brush on some simplistic concepts that I think will be beneficial for everybody to know, and it's just a great way to introduce myself to the world. One of the concepts that I continue to talk about throughout the course of my interactions with clients is what I call the three C's of communication. When it comes to three C's of communication, um, um, it's in reference to dealing with how to communicate grievances, wants, and needs to your partner or your children or respective family members. The three C's of communication go like this. Before you try to communicate to problem solve, you should at first communicate to decrease defenses, then communicate to increase empathy, and then lastly communicate to problem solve. My argument or hypothesis is that people oftentimes go straight to problem solving when they have not measured the temperature of the room and they have not created the atmosphere of empathy to even want to be heard between them and their respective other. The breakdown of the three C's of communication are as follows. When you talk about communicate and decrease defenses, it is under the unction or assumption that all of us have defenses, and in order to get past those defenses, and reach the heart of the individual, we have to attempt to de-escalate the defenses right from the jump. So under communicate to decrease defenses, you have three particular premise points. A, put some sugar on it. B, what I call the white flag technique. And then C, I call put yourself under the bus. And using these three methods is just a templated Jimmy Rig approach to be able to bypass that defensive lens that is often there because of whatever we've done in the past, or the nature of the relationship, or even a person's disposition based off of the childhood experiences. So when you talk about put some sugar on it, which is the first part of decreasing defenses, it's just going into the conversation saying something nice and authentic as a display of goodwill and a display of good motive, as a display of positive energy, and moreover as a display of positive emotion towards the other individual. But it is also a way of helping you recalibrate your own emotional intent towards the other person right in the conversation. So saying something positive automatically creates a little calibration point. It creates not only a calibration point, but it creates a point of alignment. The second piece to it is what I call the white flag technique. And the white flag technique implies that you should surrender before you begin. And what I mean by that is when you're entering into a conversation, we often come to the conversation with our own predetermined position or argument. And I'd say rather than go into any type of argument with a permanent disposition, go into it communicating that you're not there to win the argument. You're there to come up with a solution to a problem. The white flag technique says that, look, I'm not here to win an argument. I'm here to solve this. It attempts to change the structure, the initial structure of the communication from a potential argument or debate to a healthy problem-solving energy that implies that either I or you am right. I'm not trying to say I'm right. I'm not saying I have the best idea. What I'm saying is let us come into this in a neutral space. I surrender before I begin. I'm not here to win. I just want a solution. That is what I call the white flag technique. Phrases that imply the white technique says, look, I don't want you to be frustrated when we talk about this. It's an attempt to de-escalate. It's saying that I'm acknowledging that you might be frustrated. I don't want you to be frustrated, so I surrender. I'm surrendering in a conversation because I don't want you to be frustrated. White flag technique. Look, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just telling you how I feel. White flag technique. It is giving up the assumption that you're right. Another white flag technique statement is, look, not saying I have the best solution. Why don't we come together and try to problem solve this to see what the best solution is? White flag technique. It is implying that I'm not coming in with my own, but that my solution is not necessarily the best solution, but rather I am trying to come into the situation and find the bigger solution as it relates to what I might think is a solution. White flag technique. Put yourself under the bus. Put yourself under the bus is a way for you, it is a way to sort of, rather than point fingers at somebody, it is a way to suggest that neither one of us are perfect. So rather than put you under the bus, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put both of us under the bus. I'm going to say we both have work to do. I'm going to try to find common ground, commonality, alignment within whatever grievance I have that I want to express. So I may say, look, we're not perfect. You make mistakes, I make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. I just want to talk about this in a way to see whether we can problem solve it. It's a way to remove blame and shame. Rather than saying nobody's wrong, it is to imply that we all have imperfections and we're all wrong. So that is what you call put yourself under the bus. Rather than make a statement that puts them under the bus, make a statement that says, no, we're both under the bus because of the situation. Let us problem solve it. That is some of the examples and terminology as it relates to communicating to decrease defenses. Communicate to increase empathy. When I talk about communicating to create empathy, I oftentimes talk about the opposite of empathy, which is apathy. Empathy is your ability to want to understand. I don't even think it's your ability to understand. I think it's your desire to want to understand. And apathy is when you absolutely don't care. When I have empathy, I'm willing to work with you. When I have apathy, I am unwilling to work with you. I am zeroed out. Empathy helps build the relationship. Apathy will inevitably lead to the dissolving of the relationship. And the goal in a relationship is to get out of apathy, because apathy puts people in a position to say that they don't care. They have lost it. They are out. They are zeroed out. They no longer care. It is all about them at that point. And I have some commentary with regards to how to deal with somebody in apathy, but but as it relates to the 3 C's of communication, the ways in which you build empathy, the way in which you create space where we both want to understand one another, is you don't try to state facts. You try to communicate on how things made you feel. The term that I like to use as it relates to this is I tell individuals, facts can be argued, feelings can't. And so, you can argue about facts all day long, but that does not necessarily mean that you're going to be able to solve it the best way through arguing about facts. I often say you'll chase your tail arguing about facts. Run around in circles chasing your tail trying to argue about facts, because you guys can both disagree on the facts. But what you can't disagree on is the feelings, how something made you feel. And it's not creating statements that say, I felt this happened, but it is you taking ownership of your feeling and saying that when this happens between us, it makes me feel this way. So I want to distinguish that, because some people use feelings to try to, make a factual statement. I felt you did this. Well, that's just trying to turn your feelings to a fact. No. State, this happened. It made me feel this way, and I don't want to feel this way anymore. So how do we solve this so I don't feel this way anymore? It invites the other person in without blame or shame or guilt. It is saying that if you notice in the statement there, I'm not saying that you did this and therefore it made me feel this way. It's saying that this is happening. I don't care who did it. You might have did it, but it makes me feel this way. And how do we solve this so I don't feel this way in the relationship anymore? It is the removal of pointing fingers, and it is pointing more towards the object that is between us that is causing the divide, rather than putting the object of divide on the onus of the person. So we went through the first 2 C's of communication: communicate to decrease defenses, and then communicate to problem solve. The last C, which is the obvious one, is communicate to problem solve. And in that, we are looking for a win-win situation. We are looking to say, look, I don't have